Shavua Tov. Oftentimes, the process of slichot, of tshuva, is simplified into an explanation of how to say sorry. Maimonides famously wrote about the process of tshuva, and I've taught those sections and discussed those processes here before. And then last year, after my popular Cubs tshuva speech, my good friend Jerry Hellman asked me if I think people actually engage in tshuva. Do Jews really spend the Hebrew month of Elul and Aseret Yemei Tshuva, the 10 days of repentance, earnestly saying they're sorry and actually repenting, or do we just spend the month talking about it? I bet you didn't think your comments affect me. That one stuck with me for an entire year. Thank you, Jerry. And so this year, I'd like to talk about the merits of saying you're sorry, even when it's not in earnest, and the positive effect that can have as well. There is value in saying I'm sorry, even if you don't mean it, because it can lead to something larger. According to Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, weekly commentary from his website on Parshat Vayigash in 2014, the earliest example of forgiveness in the Torah occurs at the end of Sefer Breshit, the book of Genesis. After Jacob dies, the 11 brothers realize they're left to the mercy of their much more powerful brother Joseph. After making his life miserable, beating him, and selling him into slavery, they fear Joseph's vengeance. And they approach Joseph, and they tell Joseph that before Jacob, their collective father, died, he told them to say to Joseph, Ana sana pesha achecha, v'chatatam ki ra'a gemulecha. I urge you to forgive the offense and the guilt of your brothers who treated you so harshly. There is absolutely no record of such a conversation in the Torah. According to the pshat, the simple meaning of the text, the brothers make it all up as a way of appealing to Joseph's emotions. And Joseph indeed forgives them. Is Joseph's forgiveness a reaction to the brothers' guilt, or is it all based on an untruth? I hesitate to say lie because we're not 100% sure, but the larger question is, after the forgiveness, does it really matter what the reason? Just consider how far brothers came in the Torah, in the book of Genesis, in developing the muscle to forgive one another. From Cain and Abel, to Jacob and Esau, and finally to Joseph and his 11 brothers. This list of brothers in the Torah moved from murder without remorse to threatening to murder to finally untruthful apology. It's not great, but it's a positive trend in the right direction. I think we lose sight of the fact that the apology is not the goal. The goal is relationship, and if possible, a meaningful, impactful relationship. Saying sorry in the process of tshuva is only one method of getting back to a meaningful relationship with those that we care about. Of all the people I've heard make such an apology without sincerity, but use the apology as an opening, as a gateway to relationship, I've heard one person use it more than anybody else in my life, and that is my mother. When I was a child, my mother would walk up to people left and right and say, I'm sorry for bothering you, but And you know what? Even as a child, I knew she wasn't sorry. It's a tactic my mom uses that I refer to as sorry, not sorry. Most of the time, she finished that sentence by saying, "I'm sorry for bothering you, but could I take a picture with you and my children? Or can I stop you for a couple of minutes to speak with my children?" And this is the way we took pictures with Mickey Mouse at Disney World, with sports stars that we would meet on the streets, and with famous people that we would encounter on occasion. This is the way that I encountered Shimon Peres. On our first trip to Israel in 1991, we were staying at the Lerome Hotel in Jerusalem, now the Inbal Hotel, and we were in line at the breakfast buffet in the morning. For anybody who stayed at hotels in Jerusalem, in Israel in their life, we all know the breakfast buffet is really an amazing experience. I was 12 years old, my brother was 10, my sister was 8, and we were making our way through the line with the help of our parents. We were kids, 20 different kinds of cheese, pastries we'd never seen before. What's that? Will I like this? And then my mom pointed at a table off in the distance, and there was Shimon Peres sitting at a table alone, out of power, enjoying a quiet, private breakfast, enjoying his solitude for the moment. But even as a child, I knew better. And I heard fast, "Come with me." And I knew exactly what was going to happen. We walked over to Shimon Peres. He sat there dignified in a suit, eating his breakfast, drinking his coffee. And my mom said to him, "Mr. Peres, I'm sorry for bothering you, but can I take a picture of you with my children?" Without even responding yes or no, he simply wiped his face with his napkin, stood up, and put his arms around all of us. And that's the picture on the front cover of your Slichot pamphlets tonight. That Shimon Peres and my siblings, Adam and Hope, and me, in 1991 in Jerusalem at the Lerome Breakfast Buffet, but it didn't stop there in the moment of the picture. Because you see, Shimon Peres looked at us children after the picture, towering over us, and he asked in his deep, booming voice, "Is this your first time in Israel?" Looking up at him, intimidated. We nodded, yes. And he shook each of our hands, and he said to us, "Welcome home." And we shook his hand, and a bond was created, a relationship where none had existed before. Now, those false apologies my mom offered to people growing up, they served us on a silver platter, a moment to shake hands, to look into the eyes of greatness, to build relationships with those who we perceived as otherworldly. Those moments inspired us. They continue to inspire me. They taught us that greatness, that leadership, that visionaries don't land on Earth from other planets. It's all attainable. It's all choosing. Choosing on their parts to be bold and dedicated, and choosing on our part to approach them and understand ourselves as worthy. My parents chose to raise us dedicated to the important values of Zionism and Judaism. And when moments presented themselves, they wanted us to bond with the living embodiments of Zionism and Judaism. Our rabbi, Rabbi Vernon Kurtz, who will be joining us as a rabbi in residence here at Adat Shalom in January from Chicago, he called my parents and asked them to join the trip to Israel with him in 1991. My parents had never been before, and my parents chose to go with him, with their rabbi, and bring us up to meet pioneers, chalutzim, and build a relationship. However brief, it was impactful enough that I have now selected his writings as our book for our Yom Kippur Book Club here at Adat Shalom in 2018. Read it. No Room for Small Dreams. And you'll see how Shimon Peres, born in a shtetl in Eastern Europe, grew up to be a farmer in Israel, an architect of the Israel Defense Forces, a hand in Israel's nuclear capabilities, and a visionary for world affairs. Tshuva is not only apologizing. It's bigger than that. Tshuva is looking at one's life and assessing whether or not one is living their life according to their aspired values. Do our actions match our ideals? Tshuva is dreaming of the best version of ourselves and then asking, how can we return our life in some way closer to that image? Sometimes tshuva might involve the act of apology. Sometimes just the words, I'm sorry, are enough of a gateway to the goal of something larger. For if you want to know the way that Shimon Peres was born in the shtetl in Eastern Europe and grew up to be a farmer in Israel and an architect of the IDF and a hand in Israel's nuclear capabilities and a visionary for world affairs, it is precisely the same way my mother walked over to his table and interrupted his lovely private breakfast. It is the Jewish way of chutzpah for the sake of our children. There isn't a single picture from any of those apologies with my mother in the picture. The pictures were never for her. It was for us, always for us. Israel, I would argue, was not dreamt of by Shimon Peres for Shimon Peres. That's why he continued to visit high schools and elementary schools until the final weeks of his life. Zionism is always for the relationship of the next generation with Israel, to struggle with and build on and dream of a better Israel for the Jewish people. Always for us. Apology isn't the goal. Apology is just one tool of the tshuva process. The goal of tshuva is meaningful relationship. That's why the first time the Hebrew word slach, meaning forgiveness, it's used in the Torah, I believe it's by Moses in Exodus chapter 34. Another man with the best kind of chutzpah for his people, after inscribing the second set of tablets, God reveals the 13 divine attributes that we will read throughout these high holidays. And then Moses bows and says, Imna matzati chen be'einecha Adonai yelechna Adonai b'kirbenu, hi am kshe orefhu v'salachta la'avonenu u'lechatatenu u'nechaltanu. If I have now found favor in your eyes, my God, let my Lord be amongst us, for it is a stiff-necked people, and you will forgive our iniquity and our error and make us your heritage. Moses pleads with God to forgive us, to walk with us. Moses wants for all of us to feel what it's like to be close with God, to live a life with a meaningful relationship with the divine aspects of the world, for us to know that it's possible. So my answer to my friend Jerry Hellman is that I'm not sure if many Jews really spend the Hebrew month of Elul and Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, the 10 days of repentance, earnestly saying they're sorry and actually repenting. So this year, let's all think about it differently. How can we use the tool of I'm sorry, even if it's I'm sorry, not sorry, to initiate or rekindle a relationship in our lives? Who can we call this week or tomorrow or even tonight and begin a conversation that seems like it's been stuck on pause or even stopped for many years, with nothing to say, with no way to introduce ourselves to a person we've known for a long time? Can we begin with an imperfect, I'm sorry for bothering you, or I'm sorry I'm calling so late, or I'm sorry it's been too long? Perhaps even using the sorry muscle will remind us of the special quality of that relationship. Our goal should be this Hebrew month of Elul, this high holiday season, this entire new year. Our goal should be to take a non-relationship, like Shimon Peres and a child, and create one. To take a fractured relationship, like between Joseph and his brothers, and repair it. To take a strained relationship, like between God and the Jewish people, and strengthen it for 1,000 generations. May it last for 1,000 more generations to come, and let us say, Amen. Shana Tova.